Well, a very good afternoon or good morning to you wherever you're located. My name is Sandy Elson, and on behalf of the travel professional community and homebasedtravelagent.com, I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a very exciting webinar in store for you. Most of you know our guest speaker, Jeff Millar from our travel professional community. If you've been on the community more than about 5 minutes, I'm sure you know who Jeff is. Very active and very generous with his time and his information. Jeff's topic today is Learn How to Understand and Analyze Your Business by the Numbers. Jeff Millar and his wife Sharon are co-owners of Ultimate All-Inclusive Travel. Jeff has been involved in sales for the past 29 years as a salesperson, sales manager, and vice president of sales with a few Fortune 500 companies like Boeing. Jeff and Sharon started Ultimate All-Inclusive Travel in 2003 and together have built a very successful travel business. Before we get started, please remember that we welcome your questions. You can type in your question at any time in the question area you see on the right-hand side of your screen. When Jeff is finished with his presentation, we'll get to as many questions as we can. So let's get started. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jeff and welcome him back. Thanks so much for being with us, Jeff. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank everybody for attending. What we're going to look at today is that myriad of numbers that your business generates and exactly what you can do with those numbers to manage your business, to optimize your business, to make your business more profitable. You don't need to focus on every number your business generates. You should look at those numbers, but what we're going to do is we're going to hit the areas that are important that you really need to keep track of to manage your business. So let's get started. And again, as Sandy said, my wife and I are co-owners of Ultimate All-Inclusive Travel. We're located in Phoenix, Arizona. We specialize in all-inclusive resorts and Hawaii, and 98% of our sales come from that specialization. And we started this business in 2003. So what are we going to focus on today? Again, as I said, your business generates a ton of numbers, but what can you do with those numbers? How can you use those numbers to manage your business? But first of all, we have to understand what those numbers are and what they're telling you. Numbers in a business aren't going to tell you how to fix a problem, but they may alert you to the fact that you have a problem or that you're doing extremely well, but you need to understand both sides of that. And you can do that using the numbers that your business generates. The areas that we're going to focus on, and I just started from the beginning when you generate a lead. And this is the area that I think most travel agents struggle with. I know it's the area that keeps me up at night is the marketing and lead generation and understanding really what does a lead cost me and what does a sale cost me. And we're going to go through that and see how you can calculate those numbers and then how you can use those numbers once you calculated them. Commissions. I guarantee you that the commission you are at with a certain supplier is not your net commission. So we're going to look at commissions and how to calculate what we're actually making in commission. Supplier analysis and negotiation. How can you use the numbers in your business to analyze the suppliers you use and also negotiate with the suppliers that you use? We're going to look at how you use the numbers to determine your product mix and analyze your product mix to determine whether it's profitable, it's not profitable, where do you need to put your focus. We're going to look at year-to-year business planning and growth projections, and there's a couple of ways to do that, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways on how to analyze your year-to-year business, do your planning, and generate your growth projections. We're going to look at expenses, why it's important to focus on your expenses, and we're going to look at profitability, and there's a formula I'm going to give you to calculate your profit margin that will tell you, is your business doing well? Is it not doing well? Is it growing? Is it going in the right direction or not going in the right direction? First of all, we're going to look at revenue. Revenue is very simple. It's going to be made up of your commissions, your bonuses, your overrides, and your fees. So your revenue is not your gross sales. Your revenue are the commissions you get paid on those sales, the bonuses you get from your suppliers, the overrides that you get from suppliers, and any fees that you charge. And at a minimum, to track your business and really manage your business, you need to know your monthly average revenue. Another point on revenue is revenue should be tracked based on when you get paid that commission and that revenue, not when you make the sale. There's a big difference. You don't get paid your commission when you make the sale. You get paid your commission either when they travel, or some companies out there will pay you when the final payment is made. But that's where you really need to track your revenue. That's where companies like ClientEase and products like ClientEase ClientBase come in, because they allow you to track your revenue by sale date or by travel date. So you can go in, and tracking it by travel date gives you a clearer picture of what your revenue is than tracking it by sales date. You need to know the number of sales that you make. That's going to come in handy in future calculations that we're going to look at. Revenue should be tracked at a minimum on a monthly basis. And a simple way to track revenue is just a spreadsheet, or you can use something like ClientEase ClientBase, which gives you all the same numbers, but it allows you to look at those numbers from a myriad of different angles. So it gives you a lot more information concerning those numbers. Expenses. We're going to look at expenses. Expenses are very simple also. They fall in three major categories: compensation, marketing and advertising, and general expense and overhead. Those are going to be your areas, and you should track each one of those separately, especially the marketing and advertising. And we're going to get into that in a little later, but that's what your expenses are going to be made up of. And again, you need to know that on a monthly basis. I even take our annual expenses divided by 12, and that gives me a goal, a revenue goal to shoot for every month. It says my expenses are X every month, so I need to produce X amount in revenue to cover those expenses. And again, a simple way of doing it is with a spreadsheet. Now, we're going to first talk about marketing and lead generation. As I said, this is an area that keeps everybody up at night, because it is probably the toughest area to deal with, not just in the travel business, but really in any business. Marketing and lead generation, there are companies, advertising companies, that make millions and millions of dollars simply because of the complexity of marketing and lead generation. So what we're going to look at is, do you know how much a lead costs you, and do you know how much a sale costs you? And where does that lead come from? Because you should have multiple marketing campaigns, and you should track everything by the campaign, so you know which campaign's working, which campaign's not working, which campaign is producing, so you can now shift your efforts to the ones that are producing, or your efforts on the ones that aren't producing to figure out why they aren't producing. That you need to track each campaign that you would have as far as lead generation and marketing. Excuse me, I've got bronchitis, so pardon my cough. But as we all know, the least expensive way to grow your business is through repeat business and referrals. But there is still a cost associated with that, because if you are managing a campaign for repeat business and a campaign for referrals, your time is worth something, because anytime you spend on those marketing campaigns, you're not spending selling or doing other things in your business. So you need to assign yourself an hourly cost. And this is what it costs you to spend on you. And now you can determine, because repeat business and referrals are generally going to be time consuming more than they are dollar consuming. So, but you still need to determine what you're worth and calculate what it's costing you to run those campaigns, and calculate any leads you get, what it cost you. Did it take you 2 hours and you're worth $20 an hour, well, then it costs you $40 to generate that lead if you spent 2 hours generating that lead. Also, another point in here that I want to point out is no matter how much repeat business you get, you still need to bring in a certain level of new business. And I can say this unequivocally. I can name 5 agencies off the top of my head who said, we don't need any new business. We just take care of the customers we have. And all 5 of those agencies are out of business today. So it doesn't matter how much you generate in repeat business, it's always going to start dropping off. You need to replenish that with new business. And with new business, that's where you really need to calculate what does that lead cost you and what does that sale cost you. And we talked about with referrals, there's a cost involved, but it's more time than actual dollars. So let's look at paid lead generation and how to calculate the cost of a lead. The formula is very simple. It would be your cost of advertising divided by the number of legitimate leads you generate. So let's say for a particular campaign, you're paying $2,000 a month in advertising and you generate 25 leads. Your advertising costs, not including any other expenses, would be $80 per lead. And they don't have to be qualified leads because remember, it's still coming out of your $2,000 a month, whether it's a qualified lead or not a qualified lead. Where the qualified lead or not qualified lead is going to impact is when we get to looking at our close ratio. The more qualified leads you have, the higher your close rate's going to be. The less qualified leads, the lower it's going to be. So even if you get 5 tire kickers, they're still considered 5 leads that were generated by your $2,000 a month. And this is going to count for any type of paid lead generation, whether you're doing pay-per-click on social media or search engines, fees for shows, flat monthly cost of advertising, generating referrals on your hourly cost of what it costs you to manage that campaign. So now let's take those same numbers and we're going to look at the cost to generate a sale. And we're going to use a generous close rate of 40%. And as I've said in the other sessions that I conduct, if you look at every industry in the United States, across the whole United States, the average close ratio is 12%. This is where that number is going to fluctuate based on the fact of you're getting qualified leads or non-qualified leads. Because remember, that tire kicker that comes in on that campaign that you're spending $2,000 a month is still a lead. It's not a good lead, but it's still considered a lead. So we're going to use a generous close ratio of 40%. So that means of the 25 leads you generated, you're going to close 10 of those. Now, what does that sale cost you in advertising costs without any other cost? Is you're going to take your $2,000 for that campaign, divide that by 10 sales, so it costs you $200 to generate that sale or acquire a new client. And these are numbers that I've taken from actual businesses. So it's kind of shocking when you take it to that level how much a sale costs you. So now we understand it cost me $200 to generate this sale. Where am I going to, now that I know that, what am I going to do with that information and how am I going to manage my business? Well, that figure should help you decide what products you sell and who you sell those to. It tells you that on each sale you make, you must generate a minimum of $200 commission to cover your advertising costs and marketing costs per sale. That doesn't count your payroll. It doesn't count your other expenses. It's just advertising costs it costs you. So you must generate a sale that generates $200 in commission in order to cover those marketing costs. Now, we're going to step away from that. We're going to come back to it, but we're going to step away from that, and we're going to look at commissions. And do you know what your net commission rate is? And I say this because most tour companies don't pay commission on air. They pay it on land. They don't pay commission on taxes. There are a couple that pay commission on taxes, but they don't normally most tour operators don't pay commission on taxes. Resorts certainly don't. Air in a package is never paid at your negotiated rate. It's usually paid at either 0%, 3%, or 5%. It may be a little higher than that if you're using a consolidator. An example is our business. We're at 16% with our preferred companies that we use, but our average net commission on a total sale is 9.8%. And the reason it is because of the non-commissionable items. The items also in the business we're in, selling all-inclusive resorts, we do a lot of price matching, which also reduces your commission level. So we're making a net commission rate of 9.8%, not 16%. So if you take the amount of the commission you made and divide it by the total amount of sales, so if your total commission was $500 and you divided that, say, by 5,000, it equals a net commission of 9%. So that's how you calculate what your net commission is. Take your sales divided by, take your commission and divide it by that sale. Or if you're doing it on a monthly basis, take your total commissions divided by your total sales amount, and it's going to give you your actual commission rate. Tour operators and host agencies use net sales amount to determine commission levels and splits. They don't use the total amount of the sale. They're going to use the net commission level to determine those items. So when calculating your monthly income, make sure, again, we talked about it in the beginning, make sure you count these commissions in the month they're paid, not the month you sell. It's good to keep track of your sales numbers to make sure you're increasing your sales, but the number that really counts is tracking your commissions by date traveled rather than date of sale. Total sales may be counted as gross income. This is a couple of ways that accountants keep track of this. They may use your total sales and count that as gross income, or they can take your total commissions, bonuses, and overrides and fees and count that as your gross income. What some accountants do is use your total sales as gross income, and then they call the difference between sales and total commission cost of goods. And it's fine to do it either way. The bottom line is still going to work out the same. And what is left will be your commissions, overrides, fees, it's going to be called your net income. And they'll arrive at that, whichever way your accountant does it, they'll arrive at that same number. Supplier analysis and negotiations. Here's where your numbers can really help you negotiate with your suppliers, analyze your suppliers to make sure they're the right suppliers. And suppliers and host agencies negotiate commissions and splits based on production. I mean, it's clear and simple, and I have yet to find one that doesn't do it that way. It's based on your production. Now, you may get some now and then that if you can convince them that in the next year you can produce X amount of revenue, then they may start you at a higher commission level, but they'll analyze it at the end of the year and adjust it based on your actual production. So the more you book with them, the higher commission levels. And this goes back to something I've always said. When you're doing preferred suppliers, do as few preferred suppliers as possible, because that's going to increase your commission level with each of those suppliers. And basically we do right at $5 million a year, and we have 3 preferred suppliers. So what it does, it keeps us at the highest commission level with all of our preferred suppliers. And you need to keep track of sales achieved with each supplier you use. That's where a program like ClientEase, ClientBase comes in, because they can do that. They can track it by supplier, so you can go in and see where you stand. Now when you go to negotiate with a supplier, you can show them those numbers, and it gives you more strength in negotiating with that particular supplier. So always keep track of your sales numbers minus the non-commissionable, and that is going to be used when you negotiate with your suppliers for back-end contracts, for higher commission levels. Actually, even to join some consortiums, you have to prove that you have a certain number of sales. So it's always good to keep track of those things. And also, when you're looking at a consortium and they have a list of preferred suppliers, you can now compare what you're doing on your list of preferred suppliers with their preferred suppliers, and it gives you more strength in joining that particular consortium. Or you may say, my list of suppliers have nothing to do with the list of suppliers of the consortium. I probably don't want to join this consortium because it's really not going to help me from that standpoint. And again, supplier numbers used for commission levels and all negotiations back-end contracts are calculated using net sales, not gross sales. So product mix and sales analysis, that's where you're going to really use these numbers. It's going to help you determine what products you sell, who you sell those to, because it's going to tell you, I need to make X amount of commission to cover my cost. So if I have a product line where I'm constantly making less commission than it covers the cost, it's probably not a product line I want to focus on. Again, the example is when we calculated the lead cost, it tells me, and the cost to make a sale, it tells me that I have to generate at least $200 commission on each sale to cover my marketing and advertising costs. This doesn't take into account any other costs or expenses related to the sales or running your business. So there are other costs that you have to take into account when you're looking at how much commission you're making. What they do, it's the easiest way to do it, it's a method called peanut buttering, where if you take your overhead and your other costs, other than your advertising costs, so you would take your total expenses other than advertising, minus your advertising, and divide this number by the number of sales you have. So if after you do that calculation, you say, okay, I have $1,500 total monthly operating and other expenses. I made 10 sales. So what I need to do is take 10 sales, divide that into 1,500, and it's saying for my other costs, it's costing me $150 per sale, plus the $200 cost to generate the sale. So my total break-even cost on that sale is $350. So now you've got the bottom line that says to cover everything and break even, I need to make a sale that's going to generate $350 or more to break even or make a profit. So now you've got your true cost to make that sale, taking into account all your costs, whether they be advertising costs, marketing costs, overhead costs, salary costs, any compensation costs. So what that's going to tell me is I now want to look at each of my sales by category or subcategory and determine which groups of sales am I making $350 or more. If I'm doing a whole lot of sales and I'm making $50 in commissions, that's not a number you can do 1 million of those and you're not going to make it up in volume. Simply because you calculated that it cost you $350 to break even under this scenario. You each need to go in and calculate your own scenario, but it's going to tell you this is what I need to make in commission, in fees, in overrides, whatever, to break even looking at that. So it's going to cause you to focus on your product lines or products where I may want to increase my focus because I'm definitely making more than $350 per sale, or I want to decrease it because I'm not making $350 per sale. You need to calculate your own numbers and now apply them to the product lines that you sell to determine where your focus should be to increase your business and make your business more profitable. product mix, and we're going to continue in this, is keep track of your sales by product. And what I mean by product could be package travel, cruises, FITs. That would be the product line. Also, you can have products within product lines. Like if I'm doing FITs to Europe, my focus, Italy would maybe a focus of mine. So that would be a sub-product line under that product. You need to keep track of your sales for each one of these to determine, are they meeting that test to be profitable or not profitable. Cruise lines, you certainly you probably shouldn't be selling every cruise line in the world, but you need to focus on what cruise lines am I selling? Where am I making my biggest profit? Or where am I not making a profit? And I don't want to focus on those areas I'm not making the profit, and I want to apply more focus to the areas I'm making a profit. And again, where this is going to help you is your marketing costs, your advertising costs, your education costs, your supplier negotiations, and your product line and product line focus. So it's very simple. What we've done to kind of recap to this point is we've figured out what it costs us to generate a lead. We've figured out what it costs us to actually make a sale. And we've now figured out what it costs us with all our expenses to make that sale. And now I can apply it to these things. What products do I sell? What products do I not sell? Where do I apply my focus? Those are all areas that are going to make, if you cut out the areas where you're making $50 commission and you focus more on the ones where you're making $500 commission, you're automatically going to make your business more profitable than applying focus to areas where you're making $50 commission. This is where, to me, specialization really comes into play, is because if you specialize and you focus on the things that you know are producing the amount of commission that you need to be profitable, then that's certainly better than trying to sell everything, of which 20% may be stuff that's not profitable. And I'm not saying once in a while you don't need to do something that's not profitable. If it's a good client that spends a lot of money with you and they want to do something, go ahead and do it and just can write that off as marketing cost. So you can do it, but don't make that the exception, not the rule. Okay, let's look at year-to-year business plan and growth projection. And this is something you should do every year. You need numbers or projections from the current year is what you need to do your projections for the next year. And what you're going to need is your total sales volume. You're going to need your number of sales, your average price per sale, and this is calculated by taking your total sales divided by the number of sales you have will give you your average price, sell price per sale. So the first step is to calculate what growth is going to occur in the new year. And to give you some ideas, good growth for healthy established companies is really anything in double digits. Now, we got to look at, if you're just starting out, your growth is probably going to be significantly more, because if you made one sale one year and you make two sales next year, you've doubled your growth. So you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at what your growth projection is going to be. Average growth for healthy established companies is usually 10 to 20%. Most established companies are happy with growth of 10 to 20%. As I said, if you're just starting out, it's probably going to be higher than that. If you're an older company, well established, you could be happy with 8 or 9% growth. But for healthy established companies, that's a good goal to shoot for, is 10 to 20% per year. Here's an example of planning that we use, and this comes from one of our planning, just a planning sheet we use when we sit down and do evaluations with our agents. And this is from one of our agents. And as it says, in 2015, she had 168 bookings. Her total sales were $785,000. Commissions generated were $81,000. average sale amount was $4,676, and the average commission amount was $482. Now, her average commission rate, if you look at that, is 10.3%. And I said that our company average rate was 9.8%. The reason is this person, a lot of her focus is on Hawaii sales. Well, with Hawaii sales, there's a big factor and a big difference between selling Hawaii and selling Caribbean and Mexico. Caribbean and Mexico, we tend to be more price driven. So we tend to have to do more price matching with Caribbean and Mexico, where we do very little price matching for Hawaii. So consequently, her rate is going to be higher for her commission rate's going to be higher for Hawaii sales than for Mexico and Caribbean. But again, it points out, if you keep these numbers, when we did that, we said, well, it's 10.3%. Now, why is it 10.3%? We went back and analyzed her sales, and okay, that's why it's 10 point, because most of her sales are Hawaii, and we don't have to price match, so we're getting more, we're getting a higher commission rate on those sales. So then what we do is we take that and we throw in any things like the economy, any issues that may affect what she may do next year. And we say, okay, for 2016, based on 215, we want you to do 200 sales, and we want you to do a total sales amount of $935. 216. That's taking into account your average sales amount and the number of sales that you did in 2015. Just a quick and dirty way. And again, we use this one sheet when we sit down and we do agent evaluations. Year-to-year growth plan. One way to calculate growth is just a strict percentage of overall growth from the previous year. You want to say, I want to, and what we're going to see is we're going to do a check at the end of this so you can see if it's realistic or not. But one way to calculate is say, I want to grow at 25% next year. The other way to do it, and the way I recommend, is each facet or product of your business, look at each one of those and then determine how much growth in each one of those factors are realistic. By analyzing everything that we've gone through, you may determine, I don't want to sell this product line anymore, so you take that out of the picture. Now I have 3 other product lines left. So how much growth do I expect from each one of those product lines? And apply those growth figures to your figures from the previous year, and that's going to give you your target for each one of those product lines for the new year. And once you calculate this, use your average sales amount for the current year, divide your total goal by your average sales amount, and it's going to tell you how many sales that you need to make to hit that particular goal. And what it's going to provide you is a blueprint for growing your business. And it's also going to be a test to make sure that the growth you factored in is realistic. You may factor in growth, you divide it by the average amount of your sale, and it says, I've got to make 30 sales a month to hit that figure. Well, last year you looked and you were doing 10 sales a month. Probably not realistic that you're going to increase that by 20 sales a month. So now you can go back and adjust that number to a more realistic growth. The worst thing you can do when you're goal setting is set a goal that's unachievable, because that's just going to eat at you every day. It's, God, I can't hit it. I can't hit that number. I can't. What you want is you want to set a tough goal, but you want to set a realistic goal that you know you can hit. It's going to give you a more positive outlook, but you want it tough because you definitely want to work for that goal. Or if you're doing this for employees or other agents, you want them to work hard for that goal. But you want it to be a realistic goal, not something that they'll never hit. Profitability. Let's look at profitability of your business. Basic profitability is very simple. You're going to take your net revenue minus your expenses, and that's going to equal your net profit before taxes. And as discussed previously, you need to know these numbers. An average of monthly, you can do it weekly or you can do it annually. It just depends on your business. We do everything on a monthly basis. Sometimes weekly, if there's some issue that's come up that kind of has us befuddled of why this happened, why that, we may go in weekly and look at it, and that may be something that's like a one-time occurrence that won't occur again. But you should do it, I would recommend you do it at least on a monthly basis. And basically, if you look at your revenue, your net revenue, if you look at your expenses, your net revenue to break even is going to have to be what your expenses are. So if your expenses are $20,000 a month, that says you have to bring in commissions, fees, overrides of more than $20,000 a month in order to be profitable. When you're starting, and even some established businesses have a few months where you may generate a loss. I mean, it's not as our business is cyclical. There may be 1 or 2 months, even good established companies may have 1 or 2 months where they have negative revenue. So that's where you need to have a business savings account. And what you need is a good rule of thumb is to maintain a cash reserve equal to 3 months' expenses. That's going to ensure that those couple of months that you may have that are negative, you may have none that are negative, but it's always good to try to keep at least 3 months' expenses as a cash reserve to get you through those lean times. A good example of that is this year with the Zika virus. Nobody really anticipated that last year, and all of a sudden it was sprung on us this year. So it caused us to go into negative in January. We had a very good February, and we're having an excellent March, but January caused us to go in the hole. Well, you need that cash reserve for those particular things. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick calculation, and it's going to be how to calculate your profit margin. What this is going to do is show you, is your business headed in the right direction? Is it headed in the wrong direction? Is it basically running even? And the importance of this is your business may be generating a profit, but if your profit margin is declining, it's going to raise a red flag and show you that you may have a problem somewhere. It's not going to solve the problem for you, but it's going to tell you that there may be a problem somewhere in your business that you need to address. Because even though you're still profitable, your profit margin is declining. So that's why you need to do this calculation. And to calculate your profit margin, you would divide your expenses by your net revenue. This will give you a percentage which you're then going to subtract from 100%. So example, if your expenses are $264 divided by net revenue of $450,000 equals a percentage of 59%. Subtract that from 100%, and this gives you a profit margin of 41%. So in your first year you do this, this is going to set your base profit margin. What you're going to do in subsequent years is now do that same calculation and determine, is your profit margin going up, is it staying the same, or is it going down? It may go down because maybe a supplier came out with a new commission firm that wasn't as lucrative as the one they had before. So again, it's not going to fix any problems. It's really not going to tell you where the problem is, but it's going to tell you that you have a problem. Because if your profit margin is at 41% and every year it's currently declining, at some point it's going to hit zero unless you fix that particular problem. Or you make you come up with a different business strategy to compensate for. This would come into play initially when the airline said, okay, instead of 10%, we're going to give you 5% commission. What would happen if you did this calculation? You'd have a profit margin one year, and the next year what you'd have is a profit margin that's lower. And you could point to the fact, okay, my profit margin is lower because I'm getting 5% less commission for this particular product line. So that's an example of how that would happen. And you need to do this every year to determine, is your profit margin increasing, staying the same, or decreasing. Increasing or staying the same is okay, but decreasing indicates there's an issue somewhere that you need to be addressed, that you need to address. It may not be something you can solve, but you need to at least analyze your business to determine what's causing that drop in your profit margin. So the profit margin is really nothing more than an indicator, but it's a good indicator. Is your business going in the right direction? Is it going in the wrong direction? If it's going in the wrong direction, now you need to go back through all the things that we've just done and figure out why it's going in the wrong direction. So again, it won't tell you what's wrong, but it will alert you to the fact that something is wrong if your profit margin is decreasing. The major points to recap is use your numbers to calculate your lead generation, your cost per lead, and your cost per sale. This is critical. And not only that, but you need to do it by campaign, because you need to know which campaigns are working, which campaigns aren't working. If you're doing Facebook and you're doing something else, is my Facebook generating leads? What are my leads costing me from my Facebook? What are my leads costing me from this other source I'm using? So you need to calculate that to manage your campaigns, to decide I don't want to do that campaign anymore because I'm getting nothing for it, and I want to focus on these campaigns. Or this campaign is a good campaign, but I just went about it wrong, so what I need to do is change my approach to this campaign and now track it. Another good tip is when you're changing advertising campaigns, change one thing at a time. Don't change multiple things. Because whatever effect, whether it's a negative effect or a positive effect, if you change multiple things, you will not know which one of those things actually caused that change. So if you're changing a campaign, do it very cautiously by changing one aspect of that campaign, monitoring it for a couple of months, and then saying, okay, that worked, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to go on, or it didn't work, it made it worse, so I'm going to go back. But if you change 5 things and it made it worse, you'll never know which one of those 5 things made it worse. So do your campaigns that way. Use your numbers to calculate your net commission so you understand what your actual commission rate is, not what your negotiated commission rate is. And most people are usually surprised when they calculate if your commission is 10%, your net commission rate is probably going to be somewhere in the range of 5 to 6%. So you need to really understand what you're getting paid and how much you're getting paid. And use all the numbers that we've generated to help manage what products do I want to focus on, what products do I not want to focus on, what products do I want to increase my focus, what products do I want to decrease my focus. So you can manage what you sell and who you sell it to by using these numbers. And the more you focus on the things that are producing the commission levels you need, and the less focus you put on the ones that aren't producing it, again, it's automatically going to make your business more profitable and give you more time to focus on the things that are producing numbers. Use the numbers to negotiate your commission levels and your back-end contracts with suppliers, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to, when you sit down at the table to negotiate, they're going to pull up their numbers and say, you go in and say, I want to be at 16, I'm at 10%, I want to be at 16%. And they're going to look at your numbers and say, wait a second, you only did 100,000. We're not going to put you at 16%. We'll raise you to 12% or 13%. Or conversely, you can go in and say, I want to be at 16%. I did $300,000 with you last year. And they're going to look at that and say, you're right, we need to raise you to 16%. So use those numbers, track your sales by supplier so you can use those numbers to negotiate your commissions and your back-end contracts. Use numbers for year-to-year growth projection. Analyze your business and see which one of these products can I grow, because they're all going to grow at a different rate. If you're going to grow your all-inclusive resort business by 20%, chances are your FIT business or your cruise business isn't going to grow at 20%. So you need to analyze that by each one of the product lines. And even you can go as low as, I said, if you're doing FITs and Europe's a big market, you can track it by one of those subcategories of Europe is how much am I getting? Maybe I don't want to focus on Italy. Maybe I want to focus on Germany because I'm getting a big higher profit margin. I'm making more sales in to Germany than I am to Italy. Use your numbers to manage expenses. And I caution people here, when you're managing a business, do not focus on just expenses or focus on just revenue. It should be an equal focus to both. Expenses have a finite amount that you can actually manage your expenses. We did it this year with our phone expense. We looked at our numbers, and our phone expense was, we thought, way out of line. So we went in and we renegotiated with our phone expenses and brought our phone expenses down. But there's a danger if you focus on your expenses, you're going to cut your expenses to a point where it actually hurts your business. So you need a good balance between focusing on your revenue and focusing on your expenses. And with these tools, you can do both of those. And you should do that at least on an annual basis. Some people do it quarterly, at least on an annual basis. Look at your expenses. Is there anything that seems out of line? Look at your revenue. What can we do to increase our revenue? And make sure you have a good balance between managing those two. And use the numbers to calculate your profit margin. I said the profit margin is a fantastic indicator to show that your business is either going in the right direction, it's the same as it stays the same every year, or it's decreasing. So use that as an indicator. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Sandy for any questions that we may have.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Again, a note to our agents, if you have any questions, type them in. Now is a good time to do that in the question area you see on the right-hand side of your screen. Jeff, that was absolutely incredible. You're really reminding all of us that although we love the travel business, it is a business, and it needs to be treated as a business and not a hobby. Keeping track of the numbers is as important as in any other business. The travel business is a great business. It's a sexy business, but it's a business, and we all have to be aware of how to calculate whether or not we're making any money in addition to having a great time doing it. So far, Jeff, we're getting a couple of questions. We got one compliment. John says, very well done. Loads of great information. So, John, thank you for posting that. Frank wants to know, do you have a cheat sheet of the various calculations you shared today?
I don't, but I can make the presentation available to you.
Okay, and I want to remind everyone, I sent this out to you during this presentation, but we are recording this webinar, and it will be posted in a couple of days in the travel professional community in our videos area. And it will also be on www.homebasedtravelagent.com, and it will be on Tom Ogg's YouTube channel. So check those sources as well.
And if people do need to contact me, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that in helping people individually if they want to contact me.
Thank you. So yeah, if you want to contact Jeff in the community, then Jeff said it's okay, and we appreciate it. And I also want to just point out to everybody, Jeff is not getting paid to do this webinar, nor is he advertising anything. He's just doing it to help his fellow travel agent be more successful. So, Jeff, you're always so generous with your time and information, and we really appreciate that, and especially for
I look at it, if we don't help each other in this industry, we're not going to survive as an industry.
Yeah.
We've got to help. There's enough business for everybody. We just need to help each other so that we become stronger as an industry.
That's absolutely true. And also, Jeff, you're doing, as they say, paying it forward, because hopefully a lot of what our agents are learning today, they will then in turn be able to help other agents who are coming up in the future. So let's see if we have another couple of questions. Okay, so some people want to know how to reach you. And again, if you're a member of the travel professional community, which most or all of you are, you can contact Jeff there. Jeff Millar, he spells his last name Millar. And he is inviting you
Just that,
to.
I mean, I guess the easiest way is just to go in and friend me if they want, and then they can send me any messages they want. Or, like I said, if I know I'm probably opening myself up here, but if you want to get me your email address, I'll send you a copy of the presentation.
Okay, well,
So you'll have a
that
hard
would be
copy.
great. That would be great. So if you're interested in getting a copy of, excuse me, Jeff's slides, contact him and let him know. So again, our guest speaker today has been Jeff Millar, who, along with his wife Sharon, are co-owners of Ultimate All-Inclusive Travel in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Jeff, again, thank you so much. This was fabulous, and we really appreciate that that you're so generous with your fellow agents.
Oh,
So thank you for
no
doing
problem.
this.
I
And
guess the lack of questions either indicates I did a good job or I lost everybody.
no, I don't think you lost anybody. We still have most of the agents who signed on are still with us. I think everyone is just needing some time to process all this information. And when you hear about
Yeah, it is.
working,
It's a lot of information.
it is.
Just,
And when you hear about working in the travel industry, you hear a lot about a lot of things like how to sell cruises and what's the best time of year to go to the Caribbean, but you don't hear a lot about the nuts and bolts of running a business. And so I think a lot of our agents need time to process this, and I
well,
suspect.
there's a saying in business: you need to work in your business, and you need to work just as much on your business.
That's a great saying. You're absolutely right. So again, thank you, Jeff, for doing this, and thank you to all of our agents who were with us today. And we appreciate your taking time out of your busy days to join us today. And I know you got a lot out of it. Some of you, maybe you're in shock that this is really a business that has to be run like a business. But we really appreciate Jeff helping with that. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Jeff. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.